Shalom, friends. We're just a couple of days before Pesach, Passover, and you say the word Pesach, immediately what comes to mind, in addition to the wonderful holiday foods, is the preparation for Pesach, which often entails a very, 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 very tedious and sometimes long spring cleaning. Essentially, we basically go through the home, we clean the home, we get rid of the leavened products and we set it aside, but by doing so we figure, why not already clean up? So very often Pesach cleaning turns into a really like a spring type of a cleaning. And what often hits us is the observation that we have so much stuff. And we sometimes wonder, like, what did I get this for? And what did I ever use this? And if I used it, since when have I used it again? And you just realize there's a lot of clutter in your life. And you take good resolutions like, I'm going to get rid of this and that, and I won't do it again. And of course, the cycle repeats itself year after year after year. Spiritually, to a certain extent, we also have a lot of clutter. Misplaced anger, overemphasis on our comfort, or on misdeeds or slights, or on the contrary, sometimes we over-exaggerate our mitzvot, our good deeds. We're the nicest guy, the sweetest person, the most understanding, the most patient, and so on and so forth. And we forget that too is clutter. And actually, Pesach is this wonderful time, as we physically clean the home, to start looking through a little bit of our spiritual inventory and to try to do the same, actually. And it wouldn't be wrong to suggest that the sages had that in mind simultaneously as you're cleaning and getting rid of stuff and clarifying it and putting it in its proper place, that perhaps they were hinting that the same thing would apply by us as well. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, in his great brilliance, often brought some very deep spiritual lessons from the world around us. And when they came out with the Saturn, I think it was a Saturn V rocket, he made the following observations. Here we have a very heavy machine, essentially, that has to be lifted, has to fight the laws of gravity. In order to do so, it needs tremendous thrust and energy. So we fill it up with these gigantic tanks. The problem is that the tanks take up space and they increase in the weight. So it's like sort of a catch-22. You need more fuel to create more to generate more thrust and energy to lift this heavy machine off the ground, and yet in order to do that, you're increasing in the weight. So what has NASA come up with? Quite ingeniously, what they've come up with is, let's add the weight temporarily, just enough to create the thrust necessary to overcome the laws of gravity. Once it leaves that confine, just jettison it off. Now it's just a dead weight. So instead of schlepping all of the weight that it had on Earth, by the time as it rises higher and higher into the atmosphere, it's carrying, paradoxically, less and less stuff from Earth. So the Rebbe suggested, why don't we think about this, that what do we need to motivate us to be good? So let's say we're children, whether it be in years or emotionally, and we need a reward. So we could start off with a kid by, if you'll clean your room, I'll give you a treat. If you say a blessing, I'll buy you shoes. If you go and you study the Bible, you go to Sunday school, I'll buy you a bicycle. And these incentives do work. But I want to ask you, if you're 43 years old and you have to be motivated to put on tefillin in the morning, do you think it's really appropriate to say to yourself, if I put on the tefillin, I treat myself to an ice cream. Otherwise, I don't. By this time, we would think that there should be stronger motivational methods, such as putting on tefillin brings me closer to God. Putting on tefillin brings me closer to my people. Putting on tefillin creates an inner discipline, and so on and so forth. Now, they too are incentives, they too are rewards, but they're much higher than the bicycle or the ice cream. So look around yourself and say to yourself, are you still schlepping along the weight of childhood? Do you still associate doing a good deed with an immediate reward, and now you're frustrated? Look, God, I kept Shabbat already 3 times this month, and I didn't see $1 million profit. Don't you say that if you keep the Shabbat, you're supposed to see profit? So learn from NASA. It works when you're on earth. It works when you're young. It works when you need it. But as you lift yourself off ground and you get closer to heaven and you're flying in the atmosphere, you don't need so much weight, because now the thrust has created a momentum which is leading you in the right direction. All you need is adjustments and constantly to be reminded and check the radar to make sure you're going in the right direction. So friends, let's go back to Passover. Pesach is coming in another couple of days. We will be celebrating our festival of liberation, of freedom. Let's use this festival not only to commemorate a historical event that happened thousands of years ago, but to try to tap into that spiritual reservoir of freedom. And today, to drop the unnecessary things that we don't need anymore. They were perhaps necessary a long time ago, and they were effective, but we're way beyond that. And as we lift ourselves off from the doldrums of pure physicality, we will begin to understand and appreciate more the blessing of holiness, the blessing of closeness, and we will be able to literally anticipate and feel the presence of the righteous Mashiach. May he appear very soon. Amen.